When Samantha saw a big storm coming, she decided to help a homeless man who had saved her life before. She didn't know it at the time, but this decision would lead to a whole new chapter in her life. Samantha liked to daydream. You know, like when you sit by the window on an old bumpy bus and imagine different things or make up stories in your head while listening to music on a crowded subway. Every day, for a few minutes, Samantha could forget about her tough life. She was a single mom with 3 kids, struggling to find a stable job and worrying about bills. She also dreamed of becoming a fashion designer, but when she walked home from work the long way, she would let her imagination run wild until she reached her house. But then, there were days when reality was just too frustrating to brush past. Today is just one of those days. Another fine for being 10 minutes late to work. That manager wouldn't even hear me out before writing me up. What does he know about raising 3 snotty children below the age of 12 all by himself? He and the missus are still in their honeymoon phase. Ah, I wish I was in my honeymoon phase. There she was, about to cross the road, daydreaming about finding the man of her dreams once again. He could be tall or short, introverted or extroverted. But he has to be someone who can provide for the kids. I think for once I would like to live in easy. Samantha's thoughts were interrupted by the blinding headlights of a screeching car and a firm push from someone behind her. It all happened so quickly. Samantha had been pushed onto the road, and the person who pushed her fell right next to her. One moment, she decided she wouldn't spare the man, but the very next moment, clarity came back to her. The man had actually saved her from an accident with an oncoming car. Samantha struggled to get up and ultimately had to take the hand that the stranger offered her. That's when she saw him for the first time. A man in tattered clothes and different shades of dirt and grime across his body. But anybody who cared to look longer than a few seconds would see that his manners weren't half bad, and an almost childlike smile was hidden under the thick layer of ruggedness. "Thank you for saving my life," Samantha said. Well, I don't usually like people, but when push comes to shove, the man could barely wait to smile at his own remark. "So you're one of the funny ones, huh?" Samantha said, genuinely surprised by the man's pleasant demeanor. "You have to be funny if you're homeless, and especially if you woke up and lost all memory of who you are one fine day." Samantha thought the man was joking, but along the rest of the walk home, the man explained that he indeed had mysteriously lost all memory of who he was or where he came from. "All I remember is that I met with an accident at some point. I think all my documents were stolen, and this scar on my head tells me the accident may have been the reason I lost my memory." Samantha and the man reached a crossing just 5 minutes away from her home. "Well, this is me," the man said, pointing to a bench on the sidewalk corner. Samantha noticed a cardboard sign with the words, "Help me, I'm homeless" written on them, and an old rolled-up blanket placed on it to keep the board from flying. Just then, the skies turned overcast, and there was a sudden gush of wind that smelled like the onset of a storm. As she saw the cardboard sign fly away aimlessly into the air, Samantha looked at the man sighing in disappointment. "Well, there goes my sign again. Ma'am, you should really get home. It looks like a storm is coming." Samantha opened her umbrella but couldn't just leave the kind homeless man to suffer in the oncoming heavy rains. She turned to leave, but immediately turned back and spoke her heart. "Hey, this doesn't look like a safe place for you to be in a storm situation. I live about 5 minutes from here, and I'm sure I can clear up a part of the old garage for you to spend the night. This road is going to get flooded up soon." The man was caught off guard by this unusually thoughtful stranger. He waited to see if the woman really meant it. "I mean it. It isn't safe here, and offering you shelter for a night is the least I can do after you saved my life today. And don't worry, my kids won't bite." Just as Samantha promised, she made room for an inflatable bed and blanket in the garage. She offered him a seat at the dining table with her children. The children couldn't stop shooting questions at the strange guest. "What's your name? Why are your clothes so dirty?" Samantha shushed the kids and encouraged the man to feel at home. The following morning, Samantha announced her plan for the day over breakfast. "My school friend Barry works at the precinct, and I've asked him to drop in and meet you. Hopefully, you will be able to discover more about your identity and whoever stole your documents. He's a dedicated officer. I'm sure he will be of great help. And then, in the evening, we have an appointment at the General Hospital for a checkup. I've heard there are really good doctors there, so they'll help you figure out the root cause of your memory issues." Samantha was excited about her own plan, but noticed that her guest had stopped listening or eating. "What is it?" she asked. "The cops. I'm scared of cops. What if they think I'm some potential criminal or find another reason to arrest me?" Samantha saw the man's hands shiver slightly and tried to calm him with her words. "Don't worry. Just tell Barry everything you know. It will be fine, trust me." "Do you trust me?" "I do," the man said, knowing that Samantha was the only person who had cared enough to help him. "Oh no, I'm going to be late again." In all that excitement and the chaos of sending the children to the neighboring daycare, Samantha had completely forgotten about the time. "I hope the boss is in a forgiving mood today." She crossed her fingers as she dashed out of the house. It turns out that the boss was in his worst mood yet. Watching Samantha walk into the hotel 10 minutes late for the third time in 2 weeks, he summoned her straight to his office and fired her. The walk back home, the one Samantha typically enjoyed the most, was the most stressful walk she could ever remember. Clueless about how she would find another job or pay the bills for the month, she wished she would never arrive home. But Samantha could already see the tiny image of her house at the end of the street. And what's that? So many cars waiting outside. Has something happened? Samantha entered her house to find a group of men and women in suits talking to the homeless man. When she walked closer, she recognized one of the most unexpected faces in the group, her boss from the hotel. "Samantha, I'm so sorry for jumping the gun and firing you this morning. I had no idea that you had done something so amazing. I mean, everyone was starting to doubt if Mr. Stark would ever be found again." Mr. Stark, as in the owner of Stark Hotels. Samantha couldn't believe what she was suggesting would be true. But it was. "Yes, this is Mr. Stark, the owner of the entire chain of hotels. He was reported missing from his home on the other side of the city 5 days ago." Samantha looked at the man in question, and his tearful smile said he had finally started to remember who he was. "Needless to say, you still have your job, and I would like to take a look at your appraisals again. I think I may have overlooked a raise," the manager continued in a gentle tone that felt alien to Samantha's ears. "Samantha," Mr. Stark called out to her. As Samantha turned around, Mr. Stark stopped for a moment, trying to figure out how to thank her. When he couldn't find the right words, he simply opened his arms and hugged her tightly, allowing himself to cry for the first time in weeks. That emotional hug marked the start of many new beginnings. Samantha got a well-deserved promotion at her job, and Mr. Stark continued to visit her and her kids so often that they became like a family of 5. About a year and a half later, Mr. Stark was waiting in the same place where Samantha had helped him, and he got down on one knee to propose to the woman who had changed his life.